Hi there, my name is Charlotte, and in this podcast, I'm very excited to be interviewing an author. So, if you haven't heard any of my podcasts before, my name is Charlotte. I have experience working in a nursery school from the ages of 0 to 4, and I now work in a primary school as a year 2 teacher in London. This author is a very good friend of mine. She's called Gemma, and she's actually published her very first book last year in 2023. Her pen name is G. O'Donoghue, and her book is called In the Company of Shadows. I just want to say hi, Gemma.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
So I'm just going to read the blurb of her book. So exciting. Humanity has destroyed the Earth. Forced to seek a new home amongst the stars, the colonizers settle on the planet Diomedia, after decades of travel. But this planet is no ideal. It is infested with parasitic creatures called shades that attack humans who are also, once processed, a source of energy which the colony needs to survive. Landmine Butcher and Longrider Erickson are hunters who work for Shaco, and they capture these shades for the energy that their bodies generate. Shaco has always been a target for activists, but recently hostilities against the company had escalated to breaking point. After the disappearance of Longrider's father, she sets off to find him with Landmine Butcher's begrudging assistance, and finally bring an end to the violence. And little do they know, they're hurtling straight towards a terrible secret hidden in the heart of the shade-riddled desert. Oh, it sounds really interesting. So, if this book something sounds like something you're just dying to read, then you can. It is out now to buy on Amazon. It's called In the Company of Shadows, and it's by G. O'Donoghue. You can find the link below. There's an Amazon link and also from her publisher, Pegasus. So there's a Pegasus publishers link as well. So you can click the links below and have another good look. So Gemma, welcome to my podcast and thank you so much for agreeing to take part in this interview. I have so many questions to ask you. So the first question that I was thinking about was, what is the story behind your book?
So I'm not usually very good at doing this succinctly, so I will try. It's set 500 years in the future on another planet called Diomedia, which is actually mentioned in the blurb. It follows two characters called My Butcher and Longrider. So they're shade hunters of these creatures, which are called shades. And they inhabit people's bodies and turn them into zombie-like creatures, like a parasite. But then also as well, when you put them into animals' bodies, they burn as a energy source. So there's a lot of anti-shade energy feelings. So they get caught up in the violence with these protesters, and that the story kind of goes from there without giving away too many spoilers.
Oh wow, sounds interesting. Especially when they get stuck into an animal's body. Oh, it's interesting. So it goes from humans to animals.
You could go into either. It's one of those. So
Awesome.
preferably animals rather than humans.
So then how did you come up with this idea? That's crazy.
It's really random. I think probably most writers will say this, but I was working at a school, a secondary school, working with disabled children, and we were just trying to randomly name this doll. And I was writing a load of names on the whiteboard. And then at the end of the class, I was just left with like a couple of words, like landmine and butcher. And I thought, oh, that's a weird combination. And then for a while, I was just like drawing the characters and imagining what he might be like, and initially actually tried to do a graphic novel, and then I actually thought a novel format would be better, so it switched formats as well. So yeah,
Wow. Do you
and
think
it
it
kind of
could
grew
be
from there.
just a question, could it be turned into a graphic novel if you think about it? Ooh.
I would say so, but maybe with someone who's got better skill set than I do.
Wow. So how long did it take you to write the whole story or write the story that you came up with?
I would say maybe like 5 or 6 years on and off. So
Oh.
yeah, I didn't work on it consistently. It just had big gaps in time in between, and then coming back to it after a few months. So yeah, with all the edits, I'd say about 5 or 6 years.
Oh wow. So then how did you manage writing with the book and working full time? I assume you're working full time. Did you find the
Mhm.
time to write it and edit it and get it all done?
So, well, it's quite tricky because I do work full time and quite a invasive job. I don't really work with kids anymore. I actually work as in a payroll firm, and they're quite long hours. So Monday to Friday, I work into the evening quite a lot. So it's not usually an evening opportunity. So it's really just weekends that I have the time to write. So not a lot of time, and have to be quite strict with that as well, because otherwise I wouldn't write at all. So
So you had to, did you set up a schedule for yourself on the weekend then?
yeah, so I would set up a schedule. I'm going to write in the morning X amount of words. I'll write in the afternoon X amount of words. I also had to schedule time to not do any sort of work as well.
You need to have your breaks in between.
That's
Nice.
it's not sustainable. So.
Cool. So then what kind of things did you have to research to get specific information for your book? Because I can imagine, because, well, it is another planet, Diomedia, but I guess you could make stuff up. But did you have to research anything for it or look into things?
There's a certain amount that I had to reach to do in terms of research, just because it's sci-fi, even though it's maybe a softer sci-fi, and some of the others that out there with lots of scientific information. I still had to have a basic understanding of different things. For instance, I looked up about space travel and exoplanets and how that works. There's actually a really interesting book that I read called The Cosmos, A Beginner's Guide, I believe by the BBC. And it's just in layman's terms, so quite easy to digest. It's quite good to explain a bit about space and potentially about space travel. So that was one thing I looked up, and also about parasites for shades, and how normally parasites work to give it an element of realism. I mean, it is made up, but there are aspects of parasites that it's been included. So to try and have the little details, I've done lots of research about lots of different things, books and scientific journals online.
Oh, cool. Oh, you did a lot of research then to get this out, and then it's probably for you are doing this on and off as well as while you're working and on the weekend. Wow, really good. Oh my God. Yeah, well done you. I'll be able to do that. I have my weekends to get on it. Oh wow. So then how did you go about finding a publisher then? Because you must have been thinking, wow, I've got a really nice book and I just want to publish it. And those writers out there, or people who are thinking about publishing their books as well, what advice could you tell them? How many publishing companies did you have to go through before you found the one?
Well, so the process is usually that you go to a literary agent and try and one of those. So I think I was probably a bit naive to that, and I assumed that I was getting an agent straight away. So I only applied to a handful of agents, and I didn't actually get any of the agents, unfortunately. So I just got fed up of waiting. So I looked up some independent publishers and just submitted my manuscript to them, and one of them picked up the manuscript, and that was Pegasus. So it kind of grew from there, really.
Oh, lovely. So it just means that basically don't give up, just keep sending your stuff out there.
You just have to push through, because there's a lot of rejection when you're in the creative industry, and you just have to become hardened to that. So the only time that you fail really is when you stop doing anything with it. So you can't be afraid of bad feedback or people not replying to you, because it happens all the time. So you just have to get used to it.
Oh,
And
lovely.
eventually you'll get there.
Push past the rejection. Get through it.
Linger on it too much.
Sit with it a little too much. Just move on.
Writing's very subjective, so not everyone is going to like it, but some people might love it. So
there's a book for everyone out there, so of course. So when you were writing, were there any moments where you may have found a bit of maybe writer's block? What did you find helped you when you had those kind of times? Because maybe you had a weekend where you just felt like, oh, I can't be asked today. So what kind of helped you to push past those kind of moments?
Well, I think you can't really force it that much. So I have had writer's block for a while, and sometimes for periods of months even, where the thought of just sitting at a desk and writing, I just really didn't want to do it, because it's like a job, really. Even though I love doing it, it just felt like too much. So I would just take a break from it. I think that's the best advice I could give, and focus on other hobbies. Like I like painting, and I do quite a lot of yoga, so I was doing more of that in my free time at the weekends instead. And then after a while, I had a big enough break that actually it felt good to come back to write. So I'd say give it space if you are having writer's block.
That's quite good advice. I guess, as you said earlier on your schedule, you worked out when you could have breaks and time off, and you need that. Cool.
Yeah, sure.
Lovely. So, after your first published book, you're now writing another one at the moment, aren't you? So, anything you could tell us about that one?
Well, actually, yes, I can say a little bit about that. I've actually finished it technically. So I'm at the submitting to literary agents at the moment. So it's called Exile from Rikin. It's called Exile from Rikin, and it's a young adult sci-fi. It's basically a coming of age story, but the twist being it's an alien coming of age story.
Oh, nice. I like the twist.
That's what I'm currently working on. And actually, it's been recently longlisted for the Virginia Prize for Fiction, so that was exciting.
Super exciting. Oh my gosh, yeah. Tell me how that goes when you finally hear about it. Amazing.
I will do.
Definitely. Oh, maybe I can read a bit of it as well.
Yes.
Sneaky peek.
Little sneaky peek.
So, how are you finding writing the? Well, you finished it now, I've guessed. So, how did you find writing it this time round? I know the first time you had trouble, you had issue. It took you 5 to 6 years to write your very first one, and now it's your second one. How long did it take you then? What did you find the differences between then and now?
Yeah,
A lot quicker. Ooh.
Maybe 2 or 3 years tops, I would say.
Oh, a
Yeah.
lot quicker. And then you found time, I'm guessing, similar thing, you did your schedule and worked it out. But it gets easier as you go along.
I would say so. You get more used to planning out a book. With the first one, it's harder to understand how to plot out a really long book, novel-sized book. So it's kind of just working through that process.
Oh, I think with novels, it's just a long slog sometimes because you have to keep going and you feel like, oh, when am I going to get to the end of this?
And there's always the bits that you really want to write. So I went straight into them with the first book. But with the second one, I was like, no, pace yourself. Get to the point where you actually need to write it. Jump ahead.
A little tip for you guys who are writers. So, as a final thing, what would you like to say to any aspiring writers that are listening to this podcast?
I would say before you even start writing the novel, make sure that you plot it out first. Plot it out in detail. I didn't do that as much as I have for the subsequent ones, and I found it a lot easier if you know exactly what's going to happen in each chapter to then write the thing. So I would say be a plotter, not a pantser.
I like that one. Lovely. But I think that's all I've got time for. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope any of you writers and listening to this podcast will take lots of inspiration from Gemma. Again, you can find her first book on Amazon. It is called In the Company of Shadows. Her pen name is G.O. Donahue. What's your second book called again? Exile from Ricken. It's going to come out soon, so keep your eye out on it on Amazon. And who's the publisher? Is it still Pegasus or?
Oh no, I'm trying to get a different publisher. I'm trying to get an agent. So
okay, so watch this space then, guys. It's going to come out soon. Amazing. So if you have any comments and suggestions or anything, leave them down in the links below. Leave a comment. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I will be making some more soon. So thank you for listening. And until next time, bye.
Thank you. Bye.